And Angel, that's what's going to happen. So let's see. Our next presentation is creating diverse internships for changing career opportunities in sustainable agriculture and food systems. And Angel Cruz is online and ready to present.
All right, good afternoon, y'all. Really great to be here. My name is Angel Cruz, and I work at the Center for Environmental Farming Systems. I'm based at NC State University in North Carolina, and I'm the Academic and Extension Initiatives Manager, which is a really long, fancy title just to say I help coordinate education programs that are both academic and extension oriented. And I had planned to be there in person with you and hoped, but just things changed because of COVID on Thursday. Right now I'm feeling fine, so I'm really excited and thankful to the organizers for allowing me to join y'all virtually. So hopefully this works out okay. I can't really see y'all, so hopefully Cheryl can help with questions. So at CEFS, which is the Center for Environmental Farming Systems, we have been working really hard the last few years to create kind of a career pathways initiative, which our goal is to equitably prepare youth and adults of all ages for career paths in sustainable agriculture and food systems through a collaborative, dynamic network of CEFS programs and community partnerships. And I'm excited to say that in 2022, we had 54, are planning to have 54 interns and apprentices. But today I'm just going to talk about kind of our internship programs. And I'm here joining y'all today virtually, but we have an amazing team, which we kind of informally call ourselves the Ag Education Team. And it's an awesome group of people. And even though we all kind of have different roles, we all pitch in and work together to make things happen and coordinate a lot across programs, even internships and apprenticeships. And so over the last few years, we've been working hard to kind of really revamp and rethink our internship programs. And in this process, we have developed some core elements that we try to include in all internships across the board. And so first, we almost always partner with either researchers at universities or community organizations. Where it's not just hosted kind of internally. We really want to bring students like getting hands-on experience. We have found that it's really successful in these partnerships if we as a center provide the administrative support. And that means we're doing the hiring, we're doing the advertising, we're help coordinating the interviews, we provide workers' comp and payroll, which really takes a big burden off of a lot of our host sites. We have made a commitment to make all of our internships paid. And then I'm excited about this new part of kind of evaluation of interns and hosts, not just kind of for programmatic, but looking at the host site, whether it's researchers or community organizations, their learning and growth and change as part of the internship as well, which has been really fun to do. We do include regular professional development in all of our programs. And this can be, just like the previous speaker was talking about, a lot of field trips. We do either weekly or bi-weekly kind of activities with all of our groups. And these can be field trips. Yesterday, we just had 2 career panels, one on extension, one on nonprofit, and then government careers. We do a lot of networking. CEFS has networks really strongly across the whole state. And so we try to have our students meet partners and organizations across the state and do presentations and learn about what's happening across the state. Learning as a cohort across programs has been one of my favorite things, and an example of that is just last week we were on a farm tour, a 2-day farm tour across the whole western half of the state, and we had 2 different internship programs on the tour. One is a agroecology research and extension internship that I'll talk about. So a lot more traditional environmental science, agronomy, crop and soil science students, all focused on research. And then we had a group of supply chain interns, and a lot of those are working with community organizations. They're interested in policy, public health, ag business, and such. And so they had very different backgrounds, different kind of viewpoints and experiences, and all 20 interns just spending 2 days together and visiting places across the food system and then spending all that time in the van and at the hotel together, kind of discussing it all was really fun. Just, I think, like really deepened the learning experience and like transdisciplinary kind of conversations and topics. So that's I think really fun. And then they all kind of attend each other's presentations and learn. So that's kind of learning as a cohort across programs. And then we try to kick off all the programs with a racial equity training. It doesn't always happen at the very beginning, but hopefully usually pretty early on. And then I will fully admit that we're kind of figuring out what our commitment to diversity and equity like looks like in practice. We've made a strong commitment. You know, I think for some programs, it is a lot more clear than others, and it's something we're really working on and committing to. So then kind of diving into some of our internship programs, 4 of them. So I'll start with just 2 kind of much more traditional summer-based internships. One is this Agroecology Scholars Program in Research and Extension, which we call Expire. It's a research and extension experience for undergraduates funded by the USDA. It's a summer-based 40 weeks with 13 students, and we target undergraduate students that are committed to or excited about a career in agriculture and food systems. And we have undergraduates that are paired with a researcher in a lab. And it's cool because they have not only a faculty mentor, but also a graduate student mentor that's working with them for the whole summer. We kick off the program with a diverse communities and agriculture tour of North Carolina. So really trying to visit diverse producers as well as diverse types of production across the state. We originally had it as a 4-day tour, but now we do 2 days, one of the eastern half of the state and then one of the western half. And then we have a stated commitment to hire 40% underrepresented students, which we have exceeded, well exceeded every year of the program. So then the second program that I just mentioned earlier, is a supply chain internship. And it's a very different types of students, but it's a much more traditional summer internship, working 40 hours a week. And so students are paired with either a local food hub or an early childcare center. And the whole goal is to increase capacity for farm to senior services or farm to early childcare work. And here, the food hubs or the childcare centers kind of talk about what kind of students they're targeting and really want to work with. But so far it's been a mix of undergraduate and graduate, a lot of MBA, ag business, nutrition, and public health students, which has been kind of fun to work with. So then the third internship program, which is I think probably the most unique and one of my favorites, just because it wasn't an idea, it started completely naturally, organically. So during COVID, I also coordinate, not just during COVID, but part of my job is coordinating the statewide local food council. And so during COVID, when things were at its worst, we were hearing all across the state from a lot of different folks how, you all probably heard this and it's published, that farmers who had like strong social media, who had better contactless sale, like a way for people to pay, contactless, who had, online sales opportunities, were like thriving. Their business was doing great. But farmers and producers who didn't really have a website, which is still a lot in North Carolina, especially in rural areas, folks who didn't have strong social media presence or contactless sales options were really struggling to pay their bills or even sell their crops. And at the same time, I was having a lot of students come to me and other faculty across the state who were saying, hey, I lost my job. I worked in housing, or I worked at the gym, or I worked at the dining hall, and now I don't have a job. Do you have any opportunities? Or I would just be willing to volunteer. I want to do something. And so as the Food Council partnered with SEFs to develop this, we got a small grant from Self-Help Credit Union and developed this new internship program where we partnered students with local producers. So they were working directly with farmers markets, food hubs, and seafood and fishery organizations across the state. And then those organizations directed them to the farmers and producers that needed kind of tech support. And so students were helping, developing websites from scratch, They were developing farmers markets, online sales platforms. They were doing, one student was telling me about doing a Zoom on how to develop an Instagram, or just how to set up, a Square account on. And so it was really cool to see how a lot of these students, really felt excited and useful. And I still have farmers and producers calling me to be like, hey, do you still have interns? And right now it's only during the academic year. But folks are still really excited about this program, and we don't actually have enough capacity to meet all the needs. And it started during COVID, but it's still kind of continued as a need, and been pretty popular, which is really exciting. And I have to say, if it wasn't for COVID, we probably wouldn't have developed this kind of internship, or done a completely remote. Some things now, sometimes the interns will go do a little bit in person, but for the most part, it's 100% remote, which has made it easier to work with students across the state, work with producers in much more rural areas that may not normally get an intern or farmers markets because they're much further away from universities and schools and students. And so the fourth internship program, again, is during the academic year, is FIRE. And so it's just started last year. And we pair students with local food councils across the state. So here you can see the counties in orange are the food councils that had an intern last year. And so this is funded by the CDC, actually, from COVID relief work, and students work with food councils just on specific projects related to equity. And last year was the first year. And this year, for this upcoming academic year, we had half of the food councils in the state apply to have an intern. So that means I think it went really well, and it's really exciting because we also are working with majors across the board. Last year we had a theology major, we had a public health, we had an agronomy student, we had a communications, and a soil science. It's pretty big, diverse, and I think learning for them to share their experiences, what they're seeing in the communities, it has been really fun. And I think exposing them to the realities and the struggles in communities and working to increase equity in our food system has been really powerful for both the food council and the students. Some of the impacts that we're seeing across the board, I think I could talk a long time. And here's a quote which you can read from one of the students. But I think the biggest thing for me is students seeing on the ground firsthand, what it's like in these communities, what these organizations are doing, and getting hands-on experience, whether it's in research or community-based food systems work. And, in just the few years that we've developed these new programs, a lot of students are changing their career paths or going on to work for the organizations they had an internship with, which is awesome. I think there's also been a big impact for organizations and researchers that host interns. I think one of the biggest one is with the research internship is grad students are gaining hands-on, intensive mentorship experience before they go on to maybe, be faculty or something else. A lot of organizations and faculty talk about recruiting and increased capacity. And I think kind of a surprising benefit that we've seen here at CEFS is that it's really improved our relationships and partnerships across the state. It's I'm going out and visiting these different organizations and the food councils and talking to faculty way more than I was before. And it's just been great to build those connections and build those relationships on a different level. And it's also increasing our capacity to offer a lot more internships. Obviously, with everything, there's challenges. I think, something that I maybe wasn't expecting was just the challenge of building our networks and relationships in different majors. I've never really worked with a lot of MBA programs, and I'm trying to connect more with schools, a lot more community colleges, which is exciting, but it takes a lot of time and effort. And we're also trying to build those networks nationally. University administrative logistics, hiring 54 interns and apprentices can be challenging, getting them paid, all the back, our timeline can be challenging. I think something I'm always thinking about is and would love to have kind of discuss with y'all is like, how do we continue these programs when the grant funding ends? And what does long-term internship programs look like? And I think, you know, today is a perfect example. I planned to be there in person, but didn't happen because of COVID. Here's some of our plans for the future. Because of time, I'll just let y'all read that. A lot more shared learning, both within sets and nationally. I think one of my hopes for being there today was to kind of learn from y'all and like build this network of kind of people doing internships nationally and kind of hopefully building some sort of learning circle. So then I hope that we still have a few minutes for questions. These are some of the questions I have and I'm bringing to this space, but I know that maybe y'all have specific questions too. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm curious if in this internship program, does it also connect to the coursework and credits that a student's earning towards their degree, or is it purely of like an internship?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are not, you know, we're not registered for credits. Our so we're not giving anyone credit, but our agroecology program and a number of other programs across the state do require an internship to graduate. And I've got, so far, it's been pretty easy to kind of like sign those papers and say, hey, they got their internship credit. So yeah.
Okay.
And because we're not, I mean, that's part of the reason why it's like 100 always paid is, you know, we're not giving them class credit. And even if we were, I still think we should pay them.
All right. Thank you, Angel. If you could unshare your screen, that would be great.